All right, so I don't know if this one's good or not. I haven't watched it at all yet. I'm hoping because we've had Star Citizen Lives where they had something on deck where they had like visuals that they were showing. You notice over the last few weeks they haven't done much of that. This is with the VFX team. Don't Pepe left, please don't Pepe left because it's making me nervous that it's not going to be good. But we're gonna watch it anyway. So this is Star Citizen Live talking VFX. It does not have a lot of views on YouTube, so I am concerned.
The thing about Top Gun on the NES was that you had to land on the aircraft carrier. And most people could not land on the aircraft carrier.
You know what Jared is? Jared does the things. You know when you do a thing over and over again until you kill it? Jared speed runs. Jared speed runs that stuff.
Billy Escobar and Daniel Cabu and I, we all had Top Gun. We would get together and we would play.
This like conversation before the show starts.
And you would crash.
And yes, we are live. At what time? Let's have a bet, guys. At what time is he going to point out that the show is live? My guess is somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes.
On the aircraft carrier. Yeah. So then you could play the second mission. You would crash on the aircraft carrier, and then you only had one life left, so you could only play the third mission, and we'd crash on the aircraft carrier. We never got to play the fourth mission and beat the game for years. Well, the fourth mission was you attacked us. We didn't know. Oh. For years, we had no idea what the fourth mission was. Mm-hmm. And there's only 4 missions in the whole thing. And then, like, we came back to it in, like, high school, and we magically landed on the aircraft carrier one time. It's like, what? And then we got to see the fourth mission, and it's you attack a space shuttle. Wow. You're in an F-14, and you attack a space shuttle before it can take off. It's a great game, but the landing on the aircraft carrier was so devastatingly difficult that for years we never...
Like a real sim then?
Yeah, it's just you could only play 3 levels, and you could only play the 3 levels if you were perfect. Yeah. Because you couldn't survive landing on the aircraft. Wow. You never played that?
No, never played it. No. The second one.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Star Citizen Live, your weekly showcase of NES and GameFAQs news.
That was
I'm your
long.
host, Jared Huckabee, and if you've never seen Star Citizen Live before, it's where we take about an hour at the end of our week, hang out with our CIG developers, and waste their time. On the show this week, we have 2 esteemed members from our VFX team here in the Manchester, UK. We have Mr. Mike Snowden.
Hi.
Hi. And Mr. Leo, and I'm going to let you say it because I got to that point, and I should have asked you before. It starts with a V.
It's fine. Like, it's really difficult here in the UK, but Van Stink is
what?
I've never heard you pronounce it.
No, really?
Do that again?
Van Stink is
Van Stink. I've never heard you pronounce that. Like, why have we never asked you? You just leave.
I tend to not try even because people have so much trouble with it. So,
wow.
Yeah.
It's a cool name, though.
I'm impressed.
Yeah. It's a very regular name in Belgium.
It's a very regular name.
Yeah. Here
He's just like, yes, this American and this British person is very impressed, but it's a very common and normal name. Where I'm from. How you guys doing?
Very well, thank you, yeah.
Thank you for coming down. This is your first time on the ship. This was your first time on the ship.
Yes. Leo's crazy smart. You should see the shitty codes. Okay.
It's the only constant is that it's 2 levels underground and has no air conditioning. How do you like it?
It's nice and toasty, yeah.
It's a bit warm today. We're working on the air conditioning problem. So, because every show is somebody's first show.
How was their internet, by the way, when this was live?
Let's take a few moments to introduce yourself. Mike, we'll start with you. Who are you and what do you do for Star Citizen and the VFX team?
I'm Mike Snowden and I am the VFX director. So I'm sort of in charge of the VFX department.
Was it really bad?
Sure
oh no!
Kind of happy in the team and know what they're doing, and uphold the standards that are expected of Star Citizen and Squadron 42 VFX.
What's a traditional day like for a director, for a VFX director? You know, directors for different teams are different, but as a VFX director, just walk me through it.
Yeah,
let's do a Tuesday. What's a Tuesday like?
I don't wish internet problems on anyone.
I get in very early.
It sucks.
In the morning.
Not even my worst enemies.
There's usually a few, although to be honest, I'll probably check them the night before. Just check through the emails, check through the Teams messages, see what kind of things need dealing with instantly. Do a little bit of editor work on the sly, because I'm not really, as the director, I sort of don't really do as much of that. But play around with the editor, test things out, test the builds, make sure that they're kind of working for when everyone else gets in. By that point, people have started to come in themselves, and then there'll be inevitably people in the team will be coming with questions, and they'll be needing things reviewed. And yeah, before you know it, you're in the meetings that are, the established meetings of the day, and eventually it's the end of the day. Kind of typical day.
I can vouch for you answering the messages and everything on the off hours. We're not supposed to, because the off hours messages I send you are usually, hey, I saw this emulator console done by this thing on Kickstarter. Have you seen this? Is this a decent one? Or I found this old archaic, console that was only ever released in Switzerland, and check this out and whatnot. So like this. So that's usually what we talk about. But you're always like there, late night Sunday, like, why are you messaging me? Oh, it's not about work. It's about
exactly. Yeah.
Weird NAS. Yeah. So like this. Leo, who are you, and what do you do for Star Citizen?
I'm Leo van Steenkiste, right? I'm a principal VFX artist. Artist. What am I saying? I'm a principal VFX programmer. It's a big difference.
A little bit.
Must be the nerves. But yeah, I lead a small team of VFX programmers, and basically we do what Mike tells us to do. We work on the tools, the VFX, to create VFX. We work on making sure VFX are visible. We work on like the graphics engine side to make the particles do their thing, their magic, basically. But yeah, that's what I do.
Cool.
Well, I should tell you, we do keep a list internally of people who mess up their own names on the show.
Okay.
We've been doing this. Well, I mean, this show existed before me. This show goes all the way
their titles,
back to
he means,
Wingman's Hangout back in early 2013. But for the time that I've been running it for 8 years now, we do keep a scorecard of people who forget their own names during the thing. That was a forget your own title, so we're going to only count 0.5. So Tom, if you can add 0.5 for Leo. It's a score. It's not bad. You're doing well. You're doing well.
Yeah.
I get caught on things sometimes, and it's like I know I should really move on.
Yep.
Like if I were
You're
a
right.
professional and this were like a better show at a different place, like they'd be like, move on. But I get stuck.
It's fair enough.
Thank you. So the VFX team is one of these teams. We're all returning to office and it's like this, and because I spent most of my time in LA and I only see you on visits and stuff like this, I never appreciated just how large the VFX team is. Yeah. And plus, in the other buildings, sometimes we had to be scattered around.
Of course, it's large. Why wouldn't it be?
The new building, you guys are all gathered in one place, and when I turn a corner, there's just this enormous crop of VFX people. How big is the team now?
I think it's 21 of us.
Including everyone?
Yeah, including
it's
production.
Over 20, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's 21.
21 people for managing the VFX for 2 games, Star Citizen, Squadron 42.
Oh, yes, obviously, of course, 2 games.
The core tech side of it as well.
Core tech side. You get called on for, like, the trailer stuff occasionally?
Yeah, not so much these days. But yeah, I mean, the engine itself, the improvements to the engine and to the effects.
How many are working on flight? Like 2. 2 people, a paperclip, and a hamster.
Every time we have you on here, we're just going to hit the greatest hits here at the beginning. There's always a discussion about what is and isn't VFX. There's a lot of things that people see in the game that, because it's visual, and because it seems to have some effect on gameplay or whatever, they just make this assumption that it's VFX and whatnot.
What do you mean by furious 5-star?
Is and isn't VFX, since you deal with this misconception far more than I do?
Yeah, I mean, I think the common one in our game at least is, or in our games at least, is clouds, gas clouds, planetary clouds. There's a kind of an assumption that that's part of the VFX team's work, which is conceivably in other places it could be and it would be, but here we
look at him. The clouds aren't good, and he's like, not me. I mean, they look okay, but they obviously still have like the little pixelated problem, I think. And he's like, we didn't do, guys, wasn't me. Okay, it wasn't me.
We provide support for gas clouds and clouds in as much as we'll provide like the lightning effects, the space, all the kind of dust inside them, helping with that sense of motion when you're inside these kind of gas cloud areas. But we don't really author the actual clouds themselves.
Oh, there's a new ship?
Kind of other artists and
No, it wasn't
other
spoiled for me.
engineers who
So don't
deal
spoil
with
it, please.
that
If it's
side
going to
of
be
it.
shared on the show, please don't spoil
What
it.
do you do?
If it's a
We started
spoiler
off with
that's
what
like
the game
out
do,
there,
but
we could talk
is
about it
VFX?
later.
For someone who looks at Star Citizen today, you log in and you're looking at what part of what they're seeing is that's the work of the VFX team.
The obvious ones, starting with the obvious ones, really, like any kind of smoke effects that you see, smoke plumes, explosions, things like that. Thrusters, effects coming from the thrusters, the glowing of the thrusters.
Did you say explosions?
Weapon, muzzle flashes, anything that's kind of energy, like energy in motion, is typically done by the VFX team.
Explosions in Star Citizen are great.
Emit light, but that's not the work of the lighting team. It's so much. That's why. That's
a lot
what I'm
of
interested in
crossover,
talking
yeah.
over. That's what I'm interested in just exploring here. That this point where they cross over and bleed over to each other.
Huge amount of crossover, and it's collaboration, isn't it, as well? So we do actually, as VFX artists, we do spawn lights in the game. Actually, we spawn a lot of lights through the VFX, but we've got our own special lights that we spawn. They come from the particle system itself, and they're not shadow casting. We're not allowed to blow the budget, so we don't have shadow casting option. But like if we make an energy weapon effect, we'll usually have like a particle light that spawns along with the particles themselves. So yeah, there's crossover and collaboration.
So that was actually leading to my next question. So I'm glad you touched on it.
I love when they say they don't want to blow the budget, and our frame rates are like
has a budget.
So
and
low
when
sometimes.
we use the term budget as developers, we're not talking about money. You know, a lot of people hear that thing and think, oh, that's how much money you spend. No, we're talking about it's a performance budget.
Yeah.
Every single thing you ask a computer to do has a cost of that computer. So getting performance out of anything is about managing your budget.
He's doing it, guys. He's explaining.
Because your stuff.
Now's the moment.
Basically, I'm just trying to start a fight between you and the lighting team. Because your stuff creates lights and stuff like this, do you fight over
This is the time
lighting budget?
where you spam it.
Do you do these things and the lighting team's like, no,
He's doing it.
You're taking into our lighting budget. We need... your answer like, you can't cast shadows, but we can kind of thing. Talk to me about this interplay without... to start a war, I don't give a crap. Chris Campbell's a friend.
I was going to say Chris Campbell. No, there's
Take a fight with Chris Campbell.
There's no falling out at all, to be honest with you. We don't really have like a fixed budget per se anyway. It's not like, right, VFX guys, you've got 20 lights, we've got 100 lights. It doesn't really work like that. It really just is what does the game need? Like what is the use case? So there's not really we don't really fall out over it.
Well, that's because we're a PC title. We don't have the standardized hardware that you would find on a console. You only do these things and whatnot. We're still pushing the technology, and as we develop new technologies come online, new Gen 12 renderers and stuff like that. So the numbers keep changing. So so it's just kind of. But
He's doing it again.
Where you're pushing. Though there's a point where it's like like some bell in your head is like, did we go too far with that?
I would imagine it would be your frame rate in the
farther?
editor, right?
Talk to me about
like
this
when
process.
you're testing.
How do you manage
your work?
Wanting something to look as giant and dynamic and as crazy and as detailed as possible?
He's using all the words too.
Knowing you might create some heartbreak or heartburn, as the case may be, for others.
I think it just comes with it, at least for me, it just comes with experience. It's like I sort of intrinsically know not to use too many lights for an effect. Like you just use as few as you can, and it's the same for the particles. It's everything. Just use as few as you possibly can, whilst retaining like the high quality expectations. So I can honestly say, like I've not really had the conversation with Chris Campbell. Like, hey dude, like, am I using too many lights? Are we stealing from your budget? I think he'd let me know if we were. I'm sure he would.
I'm sure he
Chris
would,
Campbell,
yeah.
Send your letters to Mike Snowden. Commander Carl Kip Messer says, is this live? No. It was pre-recorded tomorrow.
Damn, I lost, dude. I was 3 minutes and 38 seconds off.
Leo, when I asked you what you did, one of the things you said was you do what Mike tells you. And but I see him nodding his head. Part of what, I've been doing this a long time, and when I talk to designers versus programmers and stuff, designers have the ideas and we want to do this, and then programmers are usually the ones that are like, yeah, okay, I can give you that part of that and that part of that and that part of that, but you can't do this without negatively impacting this other. So talk to me about that balance and finding that balance and how you work to get these people the things that they're asking for and how you balance not causing problems along the way, performance or any otherwise.
I hope they show something.
It's a lot about kind of trying to teach people on how things affect each other, and it's basically sharing the knowledge. That's the best way to kind of tackle these kind of problems. And another part is then offering tools. So one of the things that we need to do is kind of...
Dude, what happened to him happens to me all the time when public speaking. Like your throat just starts like closing and I freak out.
Take care of the budget, but then
man,
people
that was so
can't
relatable
see
right there.
How they affect the budget, they can't do anything about it. So like on our side, how do we handle that? We
poor dude.
provide
I mean,
tools
we've
for
all been
artists
there.
to
I wouldn't say
actually
poor
check
dude. It's
themselves.
like
what
it's just
does your
relatable.
effect actually
Like,
do?
I
what
feel
effect
you.
does it have on the performance? And so it's those tools together with then actually telling people what does it mean when this tool shows this or that. That kind of helps artists to better understand and to better optimize for the game.
Well, we've got a great, very new example of that, haven't we, with the Overdraw previewer, which it's like it's my favorite thing.
Generally speaking, there's never a question I don't know the answer to on a show like this, but I've never heard this term, so I'm going to ask you to explain it and just don't get me fired.
So basically, like with particles, there's a high transparency cost to them because there's opacity or there's lack of opacity, and that incurs a cost, which I know is like the transparency cost, but there's also the overdraw aspect of it, and Leah will explain it in a more like concise way. But for me, it's basically we can quickly blow the budget. We can really hit the kind of the frames per second with our transparency costs if we get too carried away with adding particle after particle. So it's how they all stack up over each other. And the overdraw previewer basically it shows a heat map. So it's like a toggle, and it just draws the screen as a heat map, and it's kind of got there's a guide showing you basically if it gets to this color, it's too high.
Bad.
So it's like the overdraw cost is too high, and it's
You're wasting particles that can't be seen because there's something else in front
exactly.
of it.
So it's great. You just toggle it.
Oh,
on
that's
and off,
cool.
You can see, oh wow, great. I can't really see many effects on the screen right now. There's maybe some kind of subtle dust scrolling, but you stick it into the overdraw preview mode and it's fully white, and that's just it's too expensive, and we need to dial that back.
So it's a great way to see things hidden behind other things that don't need to be there because you can't see it from that perspective.
Exactly, and it's like Leo says, the great skill that Leo and his guys have got is that they make our lives easier. They do as many things as they can to make our job easier, to help us to stay within the limits of again the budget.
So is that true? You make his life easier, Leo?
Yeah,
Ask him to say hello.
I'm answering for him.
Well, sometimes, yeah. We try to, but yeah, for the overdraw visualizer, shout out to Alejandro. Like
Shout out.
It's one of the graphics programmers who did it as like a kind of side project.
I just hit the mic so hard. I'm sorry.
Gave it to us. We've taken it over and we'll maintain it. But like, this is kind of nice collaboration again with like then the graphics guys.
Yeah, well, there's a massive crossover with graphics and VFX programming anyway.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like almost like, don't want to sound too cheesy, but the same family, isn't it? And you're a kind of a niche.
You didn't even notice
of that.
Oh wow,
Yes.
That department. So
great mic.
Yeah, shout out.
I love this mic.
Captain Louis Coronado says, 3 cherry cokes on his desk. How can we get Jared to drink more before we end the show? David, let's remember to check to make sure that I've hidden my caffeine habit. before we start. This is actually Cherry Pepsi Max. It's the most delicious sugar-free soft drink available in the United Kingdom. They're really good, and they're widely
that has
available
no
here
sugar?
because of the really impressive sugar tax this country has. You can't find them in the States because it's overrun by high fructose corn syrup. But here, Cherry Pepsi Max, freely available anywhere, and it's delicious.
I never knew that Pepsi Max was sugar-free because it
Send me a
sounds
shirt.
sounds like it's not.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah, that happens. So let's go back to 2 games. Now you said you got 20, 21 people working on your team. Some folks are working on stuff for Star Citizen, some are working for Squadron 42, some are bouncing back and forth, as the case may be. Talk to me about the process.
Don't matter.
The differences in process between working on a single-player game that is often only seen from limited perspectives and stuff like this, and a massively multiplayer game that can be seen from 100+ different perspectives all at once. Talk to me about the differences here.
Do you want me to take that one to start with?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
Leo's shoulders just fell. You're just like thinking about it. He's like, oh, I just watched Leo like get defeated. He went from Superman to Clark Kent.
I mean, I would be worried about talking about anything
you take
related
this,
to
Leo, you
Squadron
recover.
42 if
yeah,
I worked
mean,
there.
From my point of view, the kind of there's a lot of similarities, but they do have very different challenges. Squadron 42. Obviously, I can't give away spoilers, but everyone knows
It has VFX.
It has VFX. It's got lots of them, lots of destruction. But it's more importantly, it's more kind of as a game. It's more traditional in that there's a series of levels that you linearly progress through, and with that, there's a lot more control. So the effects can be controlled much more. And when I say control, I mean we're much clearer on kind of camera positions and things like that, and cinematic sequences, we know that the camera may or may not be fixed at certain points on it. Whereas, and therefore we can, again, going back to the overdraw thing, we can kind of look at it specifically at a frame, a point on the location, and we understand that that's what we're working with, and we can kind of start to dial in the effects to suit them specific kind of viewpoints. Whereas having some kind of sequence similar in Star Citizen, which is much more modular and much more free and not at all linear, you've just got to kind of be able to factor lots more things in. And I guess like that's why the tools that you provide
Tendeg,
to help us
thank
kind
you.
of have as much information as possible with that.
Thank you
are
very
super
much for your
useful
prime.
for it. You know, again, talking about budgets, in Star Citizen, we don't really know how many ships are going to be in any one place, and it could be hundreds, could be dozens, it could just be all of them, right?
All of them.
And inside a gas cloud, which is full of all kinds of other.
Dude, the conversation has now directly gone to like aspartame, sugar, and all this stuff in chat. Listen, I think we all know if we're not drinking just water only, it's unhealthy. So like what conversation are we even having at this point? And even the water we drink probably isn't healthy. It's just why are we even bothering?
Things, and it's just, yeah, it's really kind of the scalability of Star Citizen is a vastly different challenge to the Squadron 42 cinematic experience.
There's one thing you can always, I was talking about this with the jump point guys. I was like, if there's one thing you can absolutely count on, it's that how many people does the server hold? That's how many people are going to try to use the jump point at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like not accidentally, like intentionally. Like there will be, we're all going to log on. We're all going to go to the same place.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be 100 Auroras all trying to get through the jump gate at the same time.
Yeah.
It's going to be an 890 jump with 100 people all shooting off fireworks at the same time to see if the fireworks still go as they go through. It's, you know, our people, they put it through the test. They're all inherent, QA testers at heart in some way, shape, or form. So.
And well, it's just very
Because we're
creative,
forced
isn't it?
to. What else can we do?
Things that the backers do in the game, we can't always guess that they're going to do them. So there's a lot of creative uses of the stuff that's in our game. Yeah.
Thank you, 5-star.
I want to follow up on one of the things.
Me too.
You
I'm very
talked
proud
about
of it.
perspective. Now, obviously, some aspects of Squadron, may have a locked camera. Some obviously will not, and whatnot. It's part of that immersive cinematic experience. Be where you want to be when the certain things happen. So like this, the but at some point it's still just a single point of view. You're always still just drawing for the one player. So I imagine that when it comes to VFX, you can take a more like Hollywood approach where you don't have to build the entire building. You only have to build the facade that the camera's going to see. If the camera's never going to push inside the building, you don't have to build, a building. It's a backlot. It's like there are parts of this spaceship set that we're on, spoiler alert, that the camera will never show and they don't exist. The spaceship goes to a point and then it stops. It's like, don't tilt the camera up. It's like this. So you can do that with a single player game, but in a multiplayer game, these things have to work from every possible conceivable angle, and that changed the way you author things. It's
for sure.
Yeah, well, it changes the way you kind of
like everything has to be systemic. Like it's a buzzword, but like for Star Citizen, like everything we do needs to be like possible on all scales. On like you can look like if it's big enough, you can look from it from like very far out, but then you also go inside and like you're like inside a gas cloud or whatever, and then like the whole scale, like the travel from outside to inside, even like everything has to work, and it has to work from all angles, and it gives a nice kind of like an interesting problem to solve for us. So we try to make as much as possible systemic, but then
so that's why they always say that.
Come in and they ask like, how do we control this? That's then like the other side of your question is like, just we need to provide
make
some
it systemic, but not
over the systemic kind of nature of the game.
So we're almost out of time, but Mike, today in the UK is Employee Appreciation Day, and I'm not insensitive to the fact that the last time I had you on, I don't know why I did it. Are you going to pull out?
I'm ready. I'm going.
Right. So the last time I had you on, I unfortunately asked you to basically name every single person on your team, and you did really well, but with 20 people, you missed one or two, and I caused some strife. That was entirely on me. So I'm pleased to see that you have
got it.
That's why he knew there was 21.
So let's do this for some Employee Appreciation Day. Why don't you call out some of the folks on your team and maybe share with us a little bit about what they're currently working on.
Yeah, well, I'll start with our producers. We've got.
Where's your camera? Look at this camera. Nope, this one. That's your camera right there. You're pointing it right there.
Okay.
So Employee Appreciation.
So start with our producers, who without our producers we couldn't get anything done. So Mark White, Callum Whiteley, this is for you guys. Thank you very much for producing us.
Thank you.
This feels ridiculous, by the way.
It is ridiculous. Okay.
Then we got senior VFX concept artist. And by the way, I know everyone.
It's just hard to remember them all on live TV.
Yeah, I know everyone.
We've got Rob Lujan, who's our senior VFX concept artist. So Rob, you're awesome. So keep being awesome.
What's he working on though?
Oh, sorry, what's he working on? So Rob's actually, at the moment, he's working on some, am I allowed to say what he's working on?
Well, say it and then I'll tell you.
Okay, he's currently working on some quantum travel improvements. So
you could talk about
concepts for different types of quantum travel.
No, you can't share that yet.
Okay, so
different types of quantum travel. Okay.
And Rob's also doing loads of weapon stuff as well, so he's doing great work. We got the senior VFX artist. So we got Rory. I'm just going to go with first names, by the way. We've got Rory, we've got Karthik, we've got Ali, we've got Guillaume. These are all our kind of senior group. Rory, Karthik and Guillaume are all working on Squadron 42. You're doing a fantastic job on that, you are. Ali's working on Star Citizen, because we've basically got like half the artists on Star Citizen, half the artists on Squadron. I can't really go into much about what they're doing because it's all spoilers, but they're doing lots of locations, lots of destruction sequences, etc., etc.
Okay.
And then we've got VFX Artist 3, Ryad and Diego. Ryad's working on Star Citizen, doing some Lawville skyline improvements at the moment.
Okay.
And we've got Diego, who is Mr. Houdini, so Diego doing...
Meanwhile, everyone in chat is like, he's spoiling something. I could tell based on everyone in chat. Maybe that spaceship you guys were talking about?
Stuff with destruction for Squadron 42. Again, can't go into too much details. Then we got VFX Artist 2. We got Joyce. Joyce is actually on maternity leave. Joyce works on Star Citizen and does everything: ships, locations, feature work, weapons, all sorts of stuff. And then we got VFX Artist 1 level. We've got Will Wallace, who's just come back from a career break, traveling the world. And Will is on Star Citizen, doing great work at the moment with the Mist Hull C.
Okay.
And then
No
we've got
spoiler
Amico,
yet.
Nicolas, and they're both on Squadron 42, so I can't really go into too much detail about what they're doing, but there's lots of cool location stuff. And then we've got Ricardo, who has just joined us this week and is working on Star Citizen, so he's just onboarding. So we kind of do like an onboarding process that lasts a couple of weeks. It culminates with doing like a weapon effect. So welcome to the team, Ricardo. It's great to have you. And we've actually got 4 interns all the way from Sweden. We've got David, Kevin, Axel, and Nazir, and two of them, Kevin and Axel, are working on Squadron 42, and David and Nazir are working on Star Citizen. Nazir's doing like GPU conversions. David's working on Misk Fury. And then we got Jake,
Misk Fury,
who is embedded QA. Jake just kind of keeps us all right. Anything that's not working, he highlights it. He helps us debug problems. So Jake, you're doing great. And then I'm going to hand over to you for the programmers, Leo.
All right.
Do you want my cheat sheet?
I don't have that many people, so it's fine. Should be able to remember them.
I'll.
Misk Fury. Do they touch more on this later? Do they like just ignore it?
Yeah. Okay. So we have Kieran and Francesco, VFX programmers, and
it sounds
Alexander Meyer,
aggressive.
also one of the interns from Sweden.
Completely
Kieran
ignored. Okay.
Quantum travel effects. Then Francesco has been working on fire hazard visuals.
Fire hazard visuals.
Alexander has been working on particle tools, so he's like more a tools programmer, so external ref, it's called, like the project. But it's something to organize our particle libraries a little
There's
bit
a pic of it?
But yeah, I appreciate you guys as well.
Cool. Anybody else?
Just double checking. Even with the list, I'm self-conscious that I might have missed someone. So.
Yeah, you did good. All right, well, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us. We're gonna take a short break. We're gonna play a video. I just realized we didn't queue up a different one, so I think it's probably Yell again from last week. David, let's put that on the list because I didn't switch it out. So enjoy a repeat of Yell, and when we come back, we'll have a dear friend of mine that I don't think we've ever had on camera before. So stay tuned. See you in a few minutes. Welcome back to Star Citizen Live. That was Yell Redux, repeat from last week's interstitial because I forgot to swap out the video. That's entirely on me.
What? That was quick. It ended.
We've started this thing where we start to talk a little bit about many of the decorative items we have here on the Only Constant. This week, I want to point out these two lovely helmets here. This is a variant of the Star Kitten Dragonfly helmet, and this is the famous and much beloved Abe's Tavarin helmet. These helmets were actually created, 3D printed, and painted by a Star Citizen named Mighty Heidi.
Mighty Heidi.
For a display here on the ship. So if you haven't seen her work, you can view it on Twitter. As you can see, it's very high quality, and we're really proud to have it here. We are slowly building out a wall of helmets, which we haven't shown yet because it's got holes and gaps in it, but we're slowly starting to fill them in and stuff. So just a shout out to Star Citizen, Mighty Heidi, who makes these wonderful, wonderful helmets. With that, John,
Jared,
how are you doing?
I'm good. I feel like I'm having, an interview on.
Oh my God, this guy goes back to the early days.
All this great stuff around.
Well, that was what we were going for, an old, stodgy museum. That's very much what people think.
He was there in like the first days, I'm pretty sure.
No, I added stodgy. Because that's just, I think museums are, I have a personal aversion to museums that I don't really.
I recognize him, but I don't know
John Schimmel.
Jared,
what he does.
How are you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
We have never, we go back, we've gone back, it was probably 2015 when we first met.
Yeah, I think that's right.
At one point, you were one of my bosses. It's at various points in my career. We'll get to all that. For folks who haven't watched the show, the first half is where we talk about development and stuff like that. The second half is where I just have somebody I really like on the show, and we get to know them and get to know more about them. So that's what we're doing here. John Schimmel.
I don't like the format of this show anymore at all.
For folks who have never heard of you, which should be
But I'm glad
everybody in
Jared's
this case,
having fun.
watching the Star Citizen community, tell them who you are and what you do for Cloud Imperium Games.
I am John Schimmel. I currently have the title of executive producer. I'm almost certain that that's because they don't know what else to call me. I have cycled through the company in a kind of I think of it as almost a utility player role. I started out running the narrative group and worked with Dave Haddock and then also Will Weisbaum on the story for Squadron 42 and the early scripts. And then I got sort of asked to produce the motion capture shoot that we had in 2015 and 2016 at the Imaginarium at Andy Serkis' studio, the Imaginarium in Ealing, London, which was, I think, 90 days of shooting. We can talk about that in a moment. That was bedlam. And then we finished that, and I ran global video production for a while, which I guess is when I was your boss. Mm-hmm. And that was spectacular. I got to travel all the different, you're doing this now, sort of. I got to travel all the different studios and interview the geniuses that are making the game. And
oh, he was the guy doing the
really
interviews.
learning
Interesting.
What is involved in making this thing as spectacular as it is. And now I have a kind of multiplicity of roles. I'm producing the performance and motion capture shoots with, the rest of the team, and with Dave Haddock and Ross Richards and Emma Dobson and those people. I was supervising the build-out of Stage 6, which is our new and spectacular motion capture studio, and of this place. I now have been conscripted into putting signs up on the stage.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know a lot about that. Yeah.
I think one of the reasons as we talk more, it'll become apparent why John and I connected very easily. Our paths are remarkably similar, both in our times before being here and then here.
They're
I've often
Showtime
joked that,
people.
your title is where you start in this place. I've had 6 or 7 titles.
Right.
It's this place. This place is really good about recognizing where
They're
you
LA
can make
people
your
is the vibe
contribution
I
and
get
saying,
from
well,
these
make
two.
your contribution there. It's like, well, thought I was going to do this. He goes, yeah, but we can find somebody else to do that. You can do this, and you're moving along and finding where you can make your greatest contributions to the
Show
project.
business.
For those of us who get bored easily, it's fantastic, right?
Yeah. So we'll get into that. Let's go back to before Star Citizen. So I took a very winding path to get here. My phone is making a noise it's never made before.
You're supposed to, well,
No, it is muted. It was like an Amber Alert or something, but here in the UK, I don't know what that is. Apparently, it gets through a Do Not Disturb.
it means the sun's shining in Manchester.
So
I like this guy, man.
where was I on? So the path. I worked. I had 37
A T alert,
professions
yeah.
before I got here,
Right.
and all kinds of manner of stuff. Your path is, in my opinion, it's a little more interesting than mine is. Talk to me about the journey of John Schimmel from when you left the nest to how you ended up in video games.
Circuitous.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I started my
Missing kids, Matt, according to Jared. Oh my God! Let's cancel Jared for ignoring the missing kids alert on his phone in the middle of a show. Get on Twitter,
professional life as
where you
a
belong.
bass
Go try and
player
cancel
in
somebody
New York
over there.
City. I was actually splitting my time early on between playing
You
bass for
doofus.
Strange Experimental Theater and going to math graduate school at the Quran Institute at NYU. And for reasons that certainly my parents didn't understand, I chose to drop the math program and spend my days doing Conference of the Birds with Peter Brook at the International Center for Theater Research, which was housed at the Brooklyn Academy of Music at the time. Anyway, I cycled through that and spent about 15 years in New York, I guess, playing everything from CBGB to big band music to there were 3 Broadway shows in there. I played for and sort of musical directed a show called Runaways, which was we concocted out of workshops. Liz Suedos was the brains behind that, and we had a cast that included seasoned actors and runaways that we found in various shelters, and so it was that, and then I did. I was the musical director of the Jewish orchestra in the Cherry Orchard, which we did at the Vivian Beaumont Theater at Lincoln Center, with Meryl Streep and Raul Julia and Irene Worth was extraordinary. Andres Serban directed that, and it was amazing. The greatest moment in my theater life was the night we were doing that, and
this is not Star Citizen content, sadly.
And so there was no lights by intermission, and there were candles that were part of the set, and so the stagehands filled coffee cans with candles and stood around the stage with torches, and the ushers knelt in the front with flashlights, and we did the second half of Cherry Orchard to flashlight and candlelight. Anyway, and then 6 of us wrote a show called Pump Boys and Dinettes, which was
look at Jared.
Basically a bar band and 2 women that had a sisters act that got together, and we put together this show that ran on Broadway for a couple of years and got Tony nomination, and it was stupid fun.
You got to play the Tony. You got to play the Tony Awards that year. Didn't
I got to play the Tony Awards. I stood in line for makeup behind Robert Preston. I thought I was going to die. Anyway,
Robert Preston, for you sci-fi nerds, played Centauri in The Last Starfighter. I would say the Music Man, but you're a bunch of sci-fi people, so I put it in your terms. But continue. Sorry.
Yeah. Probably 76 trombones is not at the forefront of everybody's consciousness.
Just you and me.
Jared has no plans. Like for me, what I'm realizing is it almost feels like Jared has no plans of doing anything that his audience finds interesting. He just does what he finds interesting with this show. And I don't align with what he finds interesting. Therefore, I don't like this show, but I do know that, like, I am still interested in this guy. So I'm going to, like, keep up with this. But, like, the direction he's taking the show in, I still will say I don't like, but, like...
Somewhere between what happened before.
It's one show, it's 1 week. No, it hasn't been. It's been pretty consistent over the last
of New York
since they've come back.
Sent a friend of mine who was a screenwriter an idea for a film. I said, does this sound like a good idea? And he said, yeah, it does. Why don't you come to LA?
But nothing's happening in the game, so he's kind of stuck.
So I did
as well.
I closed up shop in New York, and I went to LA, and we wrote the script. And we sold it to Fox, and we did a rewrite for Fox, and then we turned the rewrite in, and our producer, who we met with, said, it's the best rewrite I've ever seen. I'm going downstairs to find directors. That was at 10 o'clock in the morning. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they abandoned the project, which is Hollywood in a nutshell. And amazing. And I got drunker than anybody is allowed to survive, and flew back to New York. I actually hiccuped all the way to New York and then all the way to Connecticut on the train, and then spent about a week recovering. And then went to New York and called some friends and said, I'm back. And that's how I ended up in Pump Boys. They were, putting that show together. Anyway, when Pump Boys was done, I was sort of done with New York. We had our 15 minutes of celebrity and all of that. And coincidentally, the woman that I was soon to marry was hired by Disney to be a producer on The Little Mermaid. So
Oh, wow.
Disney, we got an embossed folder that said "Moving with Mickey," which one was terrifying, and we were moved to L.A. and started our L.A. lives. And she was at Disney for a while, and I sort of put myself in a race against myself, whether writing or trying to be a development executive would come first. And I worked as a script reader for a while, and then I was hired by Warner Brothers to be a script reader. And then I ran the story department at Warner Brothers for a while, and then they started kicking me upstairs. And then they asked me to run the animation division, and I said, no, thank you. And you don't say no, thank you. So I left and sort of meandered through Hollywood for a while. But found myself eventually working for Michael Douglas and Steve Ruther at Douglas Ruther, which was on the Paramount lot. We produced Face Off, among other things.
Oh my
Rain
God,
Man.
Face Off.
Rainmaker, sorry. And then that company, as do many independent production companies, lost its financing, and I worked for Michael for a while. And then I went to work with Steve because on Warner Brothers lot, because he had $50 million to spend, and I thought that sounded nifty. And then that company went belly up, and I started to work with Chris.
So
That was circuitous.
No.
More words than you needed.
It's great. We obviously won't go through my path, but it has a remarkable number of similarities there. When I was trying to be an actor, I won't go into everything, but we were telling this story earlier before the prep. I got hired. I was doing industrials. Like my entire acting career was industrials.
Right.
What are
those
industrials?
videos that they make you watch when you hire in? Like here's an instruction video to tell you how to not run somebody over by a forklift. I have been crushed by so many forklifts, and I have run over so many people with forklifts.
And yet here you are.
Yeah, and that's what I did. And we did. There was one series.
I
and
would
there
kill for
It
that.
was specific where it was at
That
the end.
video.
It was always like, well, what did we learn in this video? Which is, by the way, where the phrase comes from. It goes all the way back to my history in the industrials.
Only 3?
But I eventually hired into Disney, and your story reminded me of that. And I'm at my orientation at Disney.
Guys, my
And it's 200
mom
people in this
and Emmy
enormous
are
ballroom.
making
We're all
apple
sitting
pie.
around tables, and we're all in different groups. I'm in green table or whatever. It wasn't a little Mickey. It wasn't a little mermaid table, but it was like a Hercules table. Movie shortly after that, and they start playing a sexual harassment video, and it's me. And it's me in the video.
Oh my God.
Basically being a jerk and whatever, and just everybody at my table starts to look at me, and that's where I knew my
That's
acting
funny.
career was over. I'm like, yeah, I don't
really
know.
funny.
I transitioned out of performing at that point. The minute I was stuck in a room with 200 people and had to watch one of my performances, I was like,
Very funny.
I'm just going to be me from now on.
Yeah, also
With all
sexual
the-
harassment in a room sort of with Goofy and Minnie, it's just too bizarre.
It was pretty. I did get some advantage when afterwards of doing the questionnaires. Who can tell us what the person on the screen did wrong? And I'd be like, not you.
Yeah.
So you've met Chris. How did you hook up with Chris?
I was I was between jobs, and Hollywood was sort of in a strange time, so you took what you could get. And I was about to go to work with somebody who is written up in more than one book about Hollywood as the worst person in the world to work for.
Okay.
And I had met a guy named Hawk Koch. He was the line producer on the Schwarzenegger movie Collateral Damage that I helped produce. And Hawk called me up and said, "You can't do that." And he had just become a partner in Ascendant Pictures, which was Chris's film company, right? Which was the venture that he did between the Wing Commander stuff and so I met Chris and his partners at the time, and he brought me on as president of production at that company. It was a really interesting company. We were somehow the American agents for a German tax fund, and for anybody that knows about filmmaking, we had
This goes into
20%
that
first
whole
money in,
article,
last
right?
money out to contribute to movies, which made us incredibly valuable. And we did Lord of War, and we did Outlander, and Lucky Number 11, and a bunch of interesting films. And then that company went the way of production companies, right? It's really hard to, the distribution deals make it really hard to survive.
And now you're in video games.
And then after that went away, I
Basically, there was like a Forbes article and a number of other ones that like like tries to say like Chris's past is very seedy, and it was all about that specific company. Like they got in trouble for like laundering money. I don't want to. I don't know who wrote it. I don't know. Don't care. All I know is that they use that in a lot of ways to discredit Chris as a like he's going to make a video game, right? They use that article and say this guy's going to fuck you because of this thing that he did in this German thing.
Chris and I had lunch, once a month for a while he was putting this
So,
together. Chris
I don't know
and
anything about
me
it. I
and
don't
his
care,
Giant
really.
dog Paddington, we would walk to
What he's
lunch
talking
and
about.
feed bread, his favorite bread from the restaurant we always ate at. Anyway, at some point, Chris asked me if he said he had put this together and asked me if I wanted to come run narrative, and I said, yeah, sure.
And
That was 10 years ago.
That was 10 years ago. Yeah, you're one of the OGs.
And one of the OGs.
One of the few people that predate even me at this point. So your time here, we won't filter through every single position you have. I do want to talk to you a little bit about that squadron shoot back in Ealing. Now, let's avoid names and stuff like this because we don't want to accidentally mention something that hasn't been mentioned yet.
Like the Fury.
But so tell me a story. Tell me what that shoot was like.
He was just like, wow, I understand why you're not an actor. No, just kidding.
That shoot was like nothing I think anybody has ever encountered. The first role I had on that shoot was that from Los Angeles I decorated a house in Ealing for Chris and Dave Haddock and myself and Hannes Apple to live in. So we had this sort of communal house. We had turned the living room into the face scan place, and I turned the garage into a clubhouse with a giant television in it. And we were about a block from the studio, so that was pretty wonderful.
A refill?
The conceit of that shoot was it was 2015, and we were going to release the game in 2017. So we were in sort of a hurry. So we started that shoot it was a 90-day shoot. We had, I think, 3 days of pre-production meetings, maybe. And we had, I think, 7 out of what eventually became 21 or 23 scripts written. And so
That many scripts? How does that work?
Dave and Phil Meller and I basically built a schedule together based on an outline. We would go, well, this is what's going to happen in this scene. Well, that'll probably take 3 days, right? and insane. And then started making these giant cast deals, right? Because we had that spectacular cast, but we were sort of guessing about how much time we were going to need for it. So there was a little, wasn't exactly relaxing, that process. I started there with just me and a production manager, and then Chris brought on this amazing line producer, Philippa Naught, and I'm going to say her name because she's amazing and she deserves employee appreciation. And the three of us ran the production office, and it was on fire most days. And the goal was to not allow that fire to touch the set so that Chris could, have as relaxed a
metaphorical fire.
A metaphorical fire. But we were juggling actors and trying to make deals and script pages. I don't know why Haddock or Weisbaum are alive. They were Dave especially was on set all day because he was valuable to Chris as a creative partner on set, and then he'd go home and write scripts, and then he'd show up in the morning with the pages they were going to shoot that day. It was nuts.
Every 2 or 3 comments was questions about the Miss Fury. I can imagine, because nobody's
really
interested
fun.
in this necessarily.
The Imaginarium crew, at the time we didn't really have much of an in-house mocap crew, so the Imaginarium crew, we were sort of half of the control area, and they were wonderful.
And Knight Rider was deleting them, really?
And our side, was Will and Dave and Chris and myself and Hans.
I hate that
and
initiative.
this completely irreverent
Embrace it, man. Who cares?
whose name I will leave out, who would say anything to anybody, and it was just we laughed for 90 days basically. You know, it was enormous
cares?
fun, and we got great stuff. I think that it was still early in the mocap technology's life, so many of our actors, especially the name actors, had never done it before, and what they discovered was a kind of democracy on the set because everybody was wearing the same not flattering suit, right?
Jumpsuit with
the jumpsuit with the buttons on it. There are no real sets on stage. So, you know, sometimes we would
sticky
pull
now.
up a set from the game, but mostly you're working on with digital set. I mean, with plywood and 2x4 timbers, right? Because the motion capture cameras don't see anything on set except the balls. So it doesn't matter what they look like. They just need to match the measurements in the engine so that people aren't like leaning through a bar, sleeping in the middle of a bed or something, right? So it was, they variously described it as kindergarten, as black box theater, but it required tremendous imagination on their part, and they mostly loved, not everybody, but mostly loved it. Yeah.
Some of the actors did not love it. That's funny.
Yeah, it's a lot like, you know, doing a play.
It's a lot like doing a play.
You're doing a play or rehearsing a play rather, because the audience isn't in the room and stuff like that.
Well, and the other thing is that, you know, if you're doing a movie or you're shooting a television show, and this is part of the challenge of shooting it, of acting it,
Jared,
of writing
ban
it.
all Fury comments,
You don't
please.
have a
Thank you.
focus. You know what I mean? You're playing to the world, because everything in the environment is visible and possible. So you're playing for big, you're playing for small, you're playing for next to you, you're playing for somebody across. Right? It's very interesting.
So you mentioned Philippa. I'm glad you mentioned Philippa, because you and Philippa and Caroline, who I want to add, that were instrumental in making this happen.
Yeah.
This happened. I don't want to share too much about the process of this, and because I leave a little bit of the mystique, and it's still new and stuff like this. We'll come back. Once the luster is worn off of us, having a spaceship, we'll talk more about the story.
Luster will never wear off.
No, it's cool,
yeah,
especially with the background screen. I'm not going to lie, that's really sick.
One of the more enjoyable times of my time here was starting from are we finally going to do this? Are we finally going to pull the trigger and do this crazy thing that Chris has been talking about forever and ever?
Right.
And then, getting empowered with you and Philippa and Carolyn's story to shout out Carolyn.
Wait, are you telling me to shut up?
Create this and to design this and change things as they needed from the in-game model
watch it
to
yourself,
suit
then.
the natures of a live
There's the link.
studio environment. It was also just good to get to work with you again.
You want to watch it with me? I'm going to talk.
That was 2016. It was 2016 when you were running GVP, I feel like.
I think that's right.
16. They all do start to blur
Yeah,
together.
I don't really remember. It was a couple
I
of
missed
years.
the point? Okay, I'm confused.
Yeah, it does still blur together after a while. But yeah, it's been a long, strange journey between the different experiences we've had, not just outside of CIG, but then within CIG, and moving through the different stuff. And I just I wanted to take this moment. You were here. You're here working on some of those things that you talked about.
You can't hide the chat.
The
It's
stuff
always
going
on screen.
The performance studio and stuff like this. And I just since we reformatted the show a bit, and the business up front and the party in the back, I guess we're the mullet of Star Citizen programming. I didn't intend for that analogy, but we'll go with it.
I'm not sure I'm happy about that.
But I found great enjoyment for me, maybe less for the viewers, I don't know, but I found great enjoyment for me in getting to use the back half to meet people we don't normally get to talk about. I had Nick and Robbie Elms were on a couple weeks ago, and they got to talk about playing D&D with Chris as a kid and stuff like that. So I like using the back half of that. And I was just, you being here, I was just really pleased that you were here and you agreed to be on the show.
Well,
so
thanks for inviting me.
So you're easily in my top 30 favorite people here. So
wow. I don't know what to say to that.
I was pouring it on a little hard there, and I was like, I need to bring it back.
Yeah, you
not
did.
Tip my hand a
Yeah,
little.
just
I didn't-
right
not
on
not
back.
tip my hand how much I like you. So yeah, so that's it for the show, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with us for another episode of Star Citizen Live. If you haven't checked it out, be sure you watch yesterday's episode of Inside Star Citizen. It's a great look at the current white box progress of the new underground facilities, which are the massive, just ridiculous in scope new playgrounds that the teams are built. The EU Sandbox 2 team is building that will house all variety of Star Citizen gameplay for the Stanton system, the Pyro system, and systems beyond. And then come back
Like what?
next week.
Like all the things we already have. I'm curious what next week's going to be.
I want to be careful in how I sell this one for next week because I don't want to oversell it because we'd be like, people are crazy and whatever. But if you remember the design brief investigations segment that we did at CitizenCon last year.
Oh, Elliot.
We are doing a new design brief for next week's show. It's another Journey to 4.0 special. It's a design brief for another aspect of gameplay. So it's not a follow-up of investigations. But
Oh,
it'll
something
be
different.
The very first, earliest looks at a new type of gameplay a system that is being developed for Star Citizen. So check that out. What is it? I don't. Well, I do know, but I'm not going to tell you because I don't want a week of hype just going crazy. So you'll have to tune in next week to find out. So for Star Citizen Live, I'm Jared Huckabee. That was John Shen.
And I'm not going to lie. I like that he did it that way. I can watch it. I can be excited by it, but I don't have to spend a week talking about it. It's great.
Thank you again to Mike Snowden and Leo for being on the show this week. And we'll see you next week, everybody. Take care.
Listen, for an episode where he talks to a random person that he likes, that was one of the most interesting people and very kind of cool dude. So I liked it, but again, I will point out I don't necessarily like the direction of the show in the way that he does it. But to each his own. I think Jared has put in so much time, so much work, so much effort that he deserves something that he's proud of, that makes him happy, and all those things. It doesn't have to be for everyone. It is not for me. I only care about the game, not the people, not game development. Don't care about any of that stuff. That is my personal preference. Now, I know other people don't feel that way. So let me know what you guys think about these shows and everything. I feel like they've fallen off a little bit.
It's only a game.
But hey,
Why you have to be mad?
all good.